Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Monish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant, whose mood is going worse by the day as Lakers picked up their third consecutive defeat. What's happening with the Lakers? They lost to Washington Wizards.
Could have just lost in regular time. I don't know why they had to take it to overtime. Just added embarrassment.
Well, we'll not disappoint you further today. Let's not talk about the Lakers today. Let's
Thank
talk
you.
about their rivals and let's talk about Clippers because I don't get good vibes from the Clippers. I mean, this seems like a rinse and repeat of last season. Uh, although the only difference is that Kawhi and PG are playing more games than they did last season.
Yeah.
Are they actually? They missed a lot of games. So let's talk about the Clippers. Let's talk about their chances and let's talk about if they're really a team that other teams should be worried about. So here's where they are. They are 22 and 12 right now, which is not too bad for a third place in the Western Conference. I don't think that's something to complain about. But they lost to the Nets the other day. It was a close game, and I also think it was a harsh call on Kawhi Leonard. I don't think it was an offensive foul, and James Harden made a meal out of it.
I think so.
Yeah, so I don't think that's too much to worry about. But I look at this team. Kawhi and PG are rocking. They're 16 and 4 when both of them have started. When both of them started, they're 16 and 4.
Yeah.
Now PG is on track to be probably a 50-50 and 90 player, which is amazing. They're shooting 14 threes a game at 42%, and at that record, you should probably be in top of the Western Conference, but they're not. That's because their defense is the worst in the league. In clutch, that is the last 5 minutes of a game when the score difference is less than 5. They concede on an average 131 points per 100 positions, which is like horrible. This is worse than Brooklyn Nets defense. Now, my question to you is this team improved at all from last season? Is there anything that is different from last season? Or it's going to be the same thing. You go to the playoffs and then you lose to someone like Denver Nuggets. This year it's Phoenix Suns are there. So what do you see? What do you make of the Clippers so far?
It's a mixed bag, but I'm a little more optimistic than you about the Clippers, and there's a few reasons why. Now, one big reason, and a lot of detractors this season are going to talk about how the Brooklyn Nets have the best record against teams that are above 500 this season, and the Clippers have been kind of on and off.
Yeah,
because they suffered a loss to the Lakers. They had 1-1 against the Jazz, but one of them was a blowout. And then the reverse fixture, they won back to back. So this is going to come up. Now, I want to say this though. Last season, the Clippers were the team with the best record in the league against teams above 500. What did that give them? Before that, I'm sure Golden State had that record a couple of times when they didn't really do anything in the playoffs or in the finals. Milwaukee Bucks, for that instance, 2 seasons ago, Giannis's first MVP run, they were the best team against all top tier teams in the league. What did that lead to? It doesn't prove a single damn thing. Outside of, if you're in the top 3 and you're a legit title contender, I think you'll be fine making it to the playoffs. Now, what the Clippers suffered from last season, apart from the choking, and enough has been said about the choking, but their biggest problem was team chemistry. Half the team or more looked like they really didn't want to be in the bubble to begin with. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, nobody was in the right frame of mind. Paul George said he struggled with mental health issues in the bubble, and I don't blame him. I'm sure a lot of players did in that scenario. So their biggest, on top of all of that, they had Kawhi Leonard's reported diva treatment from the franchise, and that kind of rubbed players the wrong way. Because remember, this was a set team, an above 500 team, a 46 win team, into which they dropped these 2 superstars. But that team already had a rapport, a chemistry, and so to speak. So there was a lot of disruption there. Now, credit to the coach. A lot of that seems to have gone away. At least they're talking all of the right stuff. They're saying all the right things. Kawhi and Paul George are gelling well together, and publicly so, and visibly, and making an effort to address the team chemistry issues. Both of these guys are LA or in and around LA, born and raised. They went to pretty much the same kind of school nearby. So maybe that's a connect. Versus the Brooklyn Nets boys that actually have a real life connect after they became adults. So it's a nice little juxtaposition. Now, back to basketball. But the biggest problem was team chemistry. And it's good to see that to a large extent being addressed. Kawhi and Paul George still miss games. It's okay. Both of them have had long-term fitness issues, but at least they're not willfully missing games. They're not skipping practice when the rest of the team is expected to skip practice. They're not missing games for no reason whatsoever. The occasional rest is okay, but it seems to be under control, and you're hearing all of the right things. So that's problem 1 solved. Full credit to the coach. 2, Their clutch defense is atrocious, but it's largely down to clutch decision making. Sometimes they just make the wrong switch, they make the wrong play call, and it leads to a turnover. There aren't that many plays in the clutch, right? So every mistake gets magnified. You don't get that many possessions towards the end of the game. No team does, because they're all drawn out. Everyone's trying to use up the shot clock, getting the best possible shot and all of that. Here's my biggest problem, though. Forget the defense. We'll come to it. It can be solved. When you've got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, you're not really worried about long-term defense. My biggest gripe with the Los Angeles Clippers is they're the number 1 3-shooting team in the league.
Yeah.
They're number 15th in 3-point shot percentage. As in the portion of shots they take that are threes. Fifth, why? When do you want to preserve that number 1 shooting efficiency status, and so you don't want to attempt more threes? I mean, it makes no sense. Teams that shoot nowhere near as good as these guys are shooting a whole lot more. In contrast, the Utah Jazz that are on fire absolutely in the league. Second best in the league in 3 shooting, number 1 in 3-point ratio. Okay. That's how you get to the top. When you're that good, shoot the damn 3. What are you all afraid of? So
I'll tell you why they don't take as many threes. Because there are 2 players in that lineup. It's Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. All the others are ordinary players, and they are the ones getting good looks because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are heavily guarded all the time. And which is why I don't think Ibaka is a good 3-point shooter, but Batum, Pat Beverly hardly makes 10 points a game. So Beverly. So
no, but my take is Marcus Morris, I think, is a damn near 50% 3-point shooter this season. Forget what he's done in the past. I don't think he's taking enough threes. Lou Williams can be an elite 3 shooter if they get him into right spaces even now, even if he's lost a bit of that ability to do it off the dribble. Because Lou Williams shooting while going to the left was a nightmare. Even if he's lost a bit of that, he can still knock them down if they set him up. Their plays just aren't designed to take as many threes. Is it the Kawhi Leonard mid-range bias that is inducing this? Maybe. But what it is that's causing this is something that the coach needs to figure out. But my only problem is Utah Jazz, second best 3-shooting team in the league, number 1 in 3-shooting percentage attempts. Right. And look where they are. LA Clippers, the best 3-shooting efficiency in the league, number 15th in 3-point shot percentage attempts. Makes no sense to me. Their defense is atrocious right now. It's slightly below average. They're the number 16th defense in the league. It's not very hard for them to move from there into the top 10. It really isn't. What is inexcusable is something that you do better than anyone else in the league, and for some reason you're gun shy. For some reason you don't attempt it enough. Right? That's the piece that doesn't make sense to me. The defense will get better. It's a fit issue. They'll figure out their rotations, Ibaka, Batum, whatever. The defense will get better.
That makes sense. And my reason for being so pessimistic about the Clippers is that they haven't figured out the starting 5 yet. And you see this every game, every 3 games, every 4 games, they're changing the starting 5. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are a lock, and Ibaka is kind of a lock. But now they've started playing Marcus Morris at the 5 sometimes, going small ball. Batum's been there. He's been better than what he was in the last 2 years. But do you really put him on a championship contending team? I don't think so. Pat Beverly is a great defender, but offensively, I don't think he provides as much. Lou Williams, no creativity as much. Always chokes in playoffs. I wouldn't depend on him. Who else is there? Zubac, you don't need him as much. So it's a bunch of etc. Right? So it's just a 2% team at the end of the day. And you've seen what happens to 2% team. You had Jamal and Jokic last season. You will go to a certain extent, and then one person has a bad day, and then you flop. This exact same thing happened to the Clippers last season. The exact same thing with Mavs. Porzingis got injured, and Luka was left all alone, having to do a little too much. So my problem is that your third best player has to be decently good, and there cannot be a big gap between the second and third best player.
Yeah, I think you've hit upon a very important question that they've got to answer, which is who is their third best player? Who's their third best scorer? Just forget player for a second. Who's their third best scorer? Because defense, you can do some combination of team defense and let your 2 best players guard the opposition's best 2. You'll figure that out. Who's your third best scorer? Because last year, they had an embarrassment of riches, actually, in bench scoring. They had Montrezl Harrell, big loss. They had Lou Williams popping off. That's not happening. That's 2 big body blows that their offense has taken. Forget their defense. That's 2 big body blows to the offense. And yet, they're actually pretty good on offense. And you're right, they are top heavy, and an injury to one of those stars can screw them, like the Mavs got screwed last season.
Yep.
Fair enough, except that can be said about any team. Look at the Lakers now without AD. Most teams that are built around superstar pivots, that's true. Look at Golden State. If put Klay Thompson back in that team right now, where would they be in the West? It's true of any team. So if one of the players goes down, they go down and it's over. The season's over. If AD is ruled out for the season today, that's it for LA. It doesn't matter who they sign from this point on. It's over. The season's over. They're not going to win the chip, whatever else they do. So even with all of these frailties and uncertainties on their best starting five, and who the hell knows who their best third scorer is, they're still the second best offense in the league, a touch behind the Brooklyn Nets. And that team is loaded. It's not just those three superstars. They've got three shooters everywhere. And the Clippers are just a shade below them. So yes, they're top heavy. Yes, they're a lot more fragile comparatively. Like the Nets can lose KD and still whitewash pretty much everyone else. Clippers can't. Okay. That barring that, once they do sort out, and maybe the difference is between the Clippers and the Lakers, they were both top heavy last season. As much depth as the Clippers had, without their two superstars, playoffs, nothing was going to happen. The difference was the Lakers, one of their two superstars was also an elite playmaker. So he could have the ball in his hands all the time and make things happen even if he's doubled or tripled.
Right.
Can't be said about the Clippers. Couldn't have said it last season. Can't say it right now. They failed to plug that playmaker gap, which is why everyone said they should have gone after Rondo. They didn't do that.
Yep.
So they're still 1 point guard away. Now, is Lou Williams going to step up? Looks highly unlikely. So they're 1 point guard trade away from being legit contenders. That's the only drawback that I would accept. I'm okay with their rotations. They don't figure it out. I think it's a better place to be at this point in the season than a rigid coach that doesn't want to experiment. But the lack of a playmaker makes on top of the fact that they're top heavy, it just puts so much more dependence on those two guys, which means in the playoffs, shut one of them down and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. So at the start of the season, the Clippers traded away Landry Shamet for Luke Kennard, and Luke Kennard was expected to start or be a regular starter in the team. Now he's been an on-off player, and when he's played, he's actually been decent, but he's had his injury troubles and he's missed a lot of games. Now with the trade window closing in a few weeks, do you think there is an opportunity still for the Clippers to grab someone who can fill in that spot for them? And I'm looking at Kyle Lowry. He's a big availability. They'll have to sacrifice a lot. Yes, they'll have to sacrifice all of the depth that you said to get someone the likes of Kyle Lowry. If not for Kyle Lowry, is there anyone else that you think they should go in and poach?
Yeah, I really like the Kyle Lowry trade, and they might actually get him for a lot less than what we're thinking, because Kyle Lowry he's not getting any younger. He's not going to command the same level of trade value that he did, let's say, 5 years ago. Kyle Lowry also gives them great defense. He's a highly underrated defender, especially in the clutch where they need to get a whole lot better. And he's a shooter. He can score. He can distribute. It would be a great addition, and probably the only addition that's even remotely plausible at this stage of the season. There's really no other point guard that's up for a trade, unless they're willing to sell the Staples Center to get Zach LaVine, who's not really even a point guard. So it's not like he specifically solves their problem. He just adds more scoring firepower. So I love the Kyle Lowry option if they can make a move for him. Otherwise, it's a pretty shallow field out there. There's really no point guard available right now, unless someone gets a buyout. But even then, it's not going to be somebody quite at the level of Kyle Lowry. So Kyle Lowry is their best bet. If nothing else works, they want to pick up at least a shooter who can kind of bring the ball up the court, not really a great playmaker. The Lakers just released Quinn Cook. But it's really, that's it. That's the field. It's Quinn Cook and Kyle Lowry, and that's it. There's nobody in between. Quinn Cook gives you some three shooting, get some volume shots off, and he can carry the ball. He's not really a playmaker by any stretch, though. That's the only options right now, sadly. They should have done this in the off season. They didn't.
Before we close out this episode, if you had to rate the Clippers in the Western Conference, where would they stand? I mean, Utah Jazz are definitely the favorites at this moment. The Lakers have been having a dip right now in their form. The Phoenix Suns have been having amazing upside. They won 11 of the last 13 games. The Clippers are there. So where would you rate them? Top, second, third, fourth?
Where they are right now, I think they're a top 3 team for sure. It's a long season. They can gun for the top 2 as well. Them coming first, it's not impossible, but it would be an upset at some level. If if AD is out for a long time, you would place the Jazz right at the top. If AD is back, as good as the Jazz are, Lakers would still be favorites. With AD back, Schroeder back, it's tough to see them not topping the West.
Yeah.
So
Quick
the
question
Clippers
for
upsetting
you.
either of them would be just that, an upset. So I'd say a top 3 team.
Right. A quick question for you. Clippers against the Jazz, 7-game series. Who would your money be on right now?
Right now, it'd be hard to argue against the Jazz unless the Clippers fix
And
their defense.
Clippers and the Lakers?
Right now, as they're set right now, it'll be a
Yes.
blowout for the Clippers. It won't even
Okay.
be close.
Clippers
at
and the
this stage.
Suns. Now this should be interesting.
I'd pick the Clippers. I'd pick the Clippers all
Okay.
day, every day, twice on Sunday. It's not even close.
I find that a little difficult because I think Clippers are a team that is meant to choke in the playoffs. Especially when you can't figure out your starting five. I find it difficult to root for a team that does not know its starting five.
Yeah,
Phoenix are having a bit of an upside right now, and I really enjoy watching them play.
No, in the playoffs, and again, overwhelmingly historical evidence suggests 2 things are a guarantee in the playoffs. The team with the best players fit will win the series. It almost always happens. There are very few examples of the team so the 2 best players in LA, in the Clippers, are better than the 2 best players in Phoenix. However well they're playing. One is young, one is old. These guys are better. So that's one. 2, playoff experience is a thing. When you've got a completely inexperienced team, even if there's a Chris Paul guiding them, the rest of them don't really have any playoff experience. Booker doesn't have any minutes under his wing. Ayton, not really. Versus all these experienced guys of the Clippers. If they choke again, I'll write them off as chokes forever. Chokers. But right now, I think as many memes as they were made, it was a little unfair. What happened last season, because that's the first time ever that Kawhi Leonard choked that badly in a game 7 or really any point in the playoffs. Paul George, yes, has a history of not getting it done in the playoffs, but when was he ever in this kind of position? In that Indiana team, he was a lone ranger going up against LeBron and those mighty Cavs teams, or Heat or whatever it was before that. And then he was in OKC with Russell Westbrook. Why does he not get enough of the blame? What has he ever done in the playoffs either, right? So it's not just Paul George. So it's the first time that he was legit in a position. They didn't do it last season, but it was the bubble. I'll give them a pass. Not the same situation. Put an asterisk on it. But if they screwed up this time, then I'll write them off. But until then, there's way too much in their favor for me to want to pick the Phoenix Suns. So it'll be Clippers all day.
All right. So that was the Clippers. They're running out of asterisks, and let's see how they fare this season.
Yeah.
And that's all we have for today's episode. And I'll catch up with you after tomorrow's games.
All right, man. Cheers.
Bye.